Luke Menzies from Menzies Law going to give us his employment law and HR update, and again, part of our Ring of Defence and one of our initiatives, so if you're not using Luke, please do. Thank you, Luke.
Well, I've got to impress you now. It's great to be a Ring of Defence. My wife might refer to my approach as a ring of bullshit, but there we go. Anyway, love to see you. It's really nice to be here. I love this view. It's absolutely super, isn't it? So you've got my 5-minute slot, absolutely super. I'm really fascinated by the last one, by the way. That's the sort of stuff that gets me really, really interested in trying to get some of my colleagues to get motivated. Right, so this is the employment law slot. What's been happening? Here's a picture of my phone. You remember this phone is plugged purely into you guys, and remember the SPA helpline. Some of you use it quite a lot, which is absolutely super. And remember, it's a free call for the first 15 minutes per issue. Several members really make great use of it and get a lot out of it, and I really hope that more of you can. So if you're not quite sure, just point whoever does people and HR in your organisation to it. Get them to give me a call about something. It'll be quite simple. Anything to do with HR or employment law. Try me out, see what you think. Please do use it. Recently, we've had quite a wide range of people calling in from SPA members. There's a theme of poor mental health, which of course is, you will know in your organisation is more and more prevalent. It turns up a lot in HR and employment law. And regularly I'm asked to help a business end the employment of someone with poor mental health, not obviously in retaliation, but simply because they've got to the point where they can't work. They don't always know that it's time for them to leave, and sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's more difficult. But there's a lot of that me and my colleagues do in that work. And then if they're going to stay, might they need some reasonable adjustments? Nowadays, this is a phrase I think everybody here knows. Anyone with a disability and mental health has a lot of aspects of it that can be a disability and qualify. There's an employer's duty to think about whether you can make any adjustments to the role, the work, the hours, the tasks, the reporting, whatever it may be, as long as it's reasonable. So that reasonableness, you'll be pleased to hear, includes the cost. It's got to make business sense. It's got to be reasonably priced, but within those parameters, if you can do it to keep someone with a disability, including a mental health disability, in work and productive or more productive, then you may well have an obligation to do it. You probably would also want to do it anyway, out of pure humanity. And then we had a dismissal for a race hate crime recently, which was quite an unusual one. Hopefully none of the rest of you here will have to deal with that. But it's just a great reminder of all the weird and wonderful stuff that turns up. And the reason I love my job far better than contract law or property law or tax or anything like that is because it's the pure non-stop weirdness of what folks do in the workplace. The wrongs, the bad uns, the just that they did that, really? And it just endlessly fascinates me. Right, gender pay gap. You may think, oh, we're too small for this automatic reporting that came in a few years ago. We're safe. You are safe until, as you can see on the screen, 2025, when probably even most of you in this room, if you are 50+ staff within one limited company or per limited company, may well then eventually be required to calculate and report. And the way it works is that you take a snapshot of what your payroll was for the month of April, and then 11 3/4 months later, you have to report it. Now, we've been doing this a lot for many businesses, and so when it comes to it, if you are either the 150+ or the 50+, then we will be here and we will do wonderful workshops just for the SPA membership to make Tim happy. This is my main job in life. We will do online stuff, calculations, you name it. We've got a bit of a specialism in gender pay gap calculation, and we'll look after you. But don't forget that even those, if you've only got 50 staff, then you're going to be needing to look at that in the next couple of years. In terms of useful preparation, who would do it? Do you have a payroll manager? Do you outsource it? Do you have someone in-house? There's some adding up. There's some weeding out. There's a bit of maths involved. There's a mean and a median. Anyone remember what the difference between those is? We don't have to do the mode, thank goodness. Doing a test run the year before, just to iron out some strange little wrinkles that you wouldn't expect were there, is always good. So take that one away and think about that. We don't know what's going to happen in the last 12 months, as the last 12 months and the one before that has ably shown us. The world is far more volatile and unstable and unexpected than we could possibly imagine. So it's possible that there could be a recession. It's possible that it could be a good time for you, a bad time for you. But if you start needing to think about restructuring and redundancies, do remember that if people are going to lose their jobs or be asked to work considerably fewer hours or be moved around, that might well create an employment law thing. Using a technical term there, as you can tell. I don't want to blind you with too much law. An employment law thing may arise, and a quick 15-minute call to your friendliest employment lawyer on the planet may just make sure that you do everything in the right order, jump through the right hoops, and so on. So if you've got any of that coming up, restructuring, redundancies, moving around, hours reductions, hours increases, major shifts of alleged, see the lawyer in me, allocated tasks, give me a call and let's make sure it's all pucker. You know there's a general rule that if you haven't got 2 years service, then unfair dismissal rules don't apply. For the most part, that means the more complicated redundancy processes don't apply and the duty to make a redundancy payment doesn't apply, but always just check, because there may be some unusual element with a certain person. So I'm very used to an HR person or a finance person ringing me up and saying, right, we need to let these 4 people go, and I will just say, just tell me briefly about them, length of service, what is the reason, and then we'll run through them, and then I can give them a green light, or an amber light necessarily if there's something that we need to look at as a slight risk. It's all about risk assessment. Discrimination claims are increasing year on year, and they are always a favourite for a claimant lawyer who says, well, you haven't got 2 years service, so you can't sue for unfair dismissal for your redundancy, but just a minute, could it be because you're 59 and a half? Or could it be because you're female in a male world or male in a female world? Or could it be because of your disability or whatever it may be? And they're increasingly becoming creative. So I don't want you to create any fodder for such creativity. So again, that's another good reason to look over the situation with an employment lawyer, just for a few minutes if you are considering any job losses. Planning is a great idea. And it may be that your contracts have short-term working and layoff provisions, which, as we learned during COVID, could be useful. It's in the 2017 edition of the SPA template contract for employment. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Check if it's there. We never know what's around the corner. There are, of course, alternative redundancies. It's always worth remembering. Some of them may not require anything formal, or just an agreement, or a handshake, an exchange of emails, and some of them may require something more. This is what I mentioned last time, but I'm going to keep banging on about it. The rise of the disability-related claims. We're still seeing a significant rise. Almost all of them are to do with poor mental health, or with neurodiversity, which, as you may remember me saying last time, for those of you not particularly au fait with the word, it's where you have different mental wiring. You may not be unwell. You may be functioning terribly strongly, but you may have something on the autistic spectrum, or dyslexia, or ADHD, or whatever it may be. We're increasingly finding that a lot more people have these various neurodivergent conditions than we thought, and they are increasingly finding out and then it becoming an issue for work. You can't do that to me because, or I can't work with that boss because, or even you've dismissed me because. And it's that because that we need to help you think through and try and avoid in terms of it turning into a claim. Also, as good employers who don't want to lose valuable staff, the more flexible and accommodating and knowledgeable that you can become around whether it's mental illnesses or neurodiversity, the better. I speak as someone whose daughter's going off for an assessment for both autism and ADHD next week, which actually would be a fantastically useful explanation for the awfulness that she as a 15-year-old submits me and my wife to on a daily basis. Now, she's also a 15-year-old girl, let's face it. So door slamming and telling us to F off and we've ruined her life is, of course, standard. But, yeah, way 15-year-olds. And she's got a twin sister who's also almost as bad, but not quite. But what we've realised is actually that it may be an autistic spectrum or an ADHD diagnosis actually just be a really welcome explanation, because then we can get books, we can go on courses, we can help her sort stuff out. And she's likely to get three A stars at A level. She's a bright student. She'll do very well. So it's not as if we're feeling terrible, but it's really useful to know. And the more I think about that, the more I read about it, the more I see it in all the calls I get, again and again and again. That there's just the way people tick. I had a client ring up today who I had to. It was actually a director and an individual, because I am poacher and gamekeeper, which I think always keeps me fresh for your benefit. So as director rang up, she'd been exited from a business, exited is a kind word, last year for having allegedly caused 6 lots of bullying. Now she'd been at another business for a year, and she rang me up to say, I'm being asked to go again, because they say I'm upsetting the other directors. And she, just like in both times, both the previous time and this call, she said, I can't understand why I'm upsetting these people. I'm not doing anything. And I thought, well, I thought to myself, I wonder if you might be on the autistic spectrum, that your ability to sort of tune in with other people's social cues and how they're perceiving you and how you're speaking, which is a very passionate, very technically expert person, is just, you're just not, you haven't got that level of sophisticated nuance when you're looking at someone else and you're just talking at them rather than listening to how they perceive you. Anyway, end of the conversation, she's gone off to get an ASD assessment, and rather than being offended, was fascinated by it, because of course, again, it doesn't need to be a bad thing. It can be I'm very, very good at my job and I have this condition. So just bear that in mind. A fifth of you in this room, 20% of you will have something that's neurodiverse: dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ASD, or ADHD. Many successful entrepreneurs have ADHD. Not badly, but a bit. It's hereditary. I probably have it if my daughter's got it, which is why I, get very excited about my stuff. So just bear it in mind. That's my little piece. Use me, please, otherwise I shall sit sadly by my phone. Very, very lonely. Okay? That's me. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. That was excellent. Just to reiterate, these are benefits of being SPA members. And these aren't just for sheep plants, for converter members, supply members in the room as well. Use all these initiatives. Your membership buys you this sort of support. So these people are here for us, so please take them up on the offer. Give Luke a bell. Even if you don't have a problem, just give him a bell and say hi.